Welcome to the many interpretations of Deinonychus. Now, Deinonychus was a dromaeosaurid that lived in the early Cretaceous of what is now North America. They're probably not as popular as something like Velociraptor or maybe even Utah Raptor by this point, but they are incredibly important for paleontology as a whole. They were the type of dinosaur that helped kick off what is known as the dinosaur renaissance, which is something we might get into a little bit more as the video progresses, and it really helped us recontextualize the way that we could view dinosaurs as a whole. So all in all, Deinonychus is incredibly important. So now it's going to be really fun to see how they were portrayed in the overall media depictions. Let's see what stylistic choices were taken and whatnot. Let's get right into it. We will start this list off with dinosaur, exclamation point. Now, this Phil Tippett film is absolutely amazing. All of the animal movements and everything look just incredible. Of course, they're all stop motion, and the designs reflect the time in which it was released. Of course, there was a point in time where feathers on non-avian dinosaurs weren't nearly as accepted as they are today, and that certainly did extend to Deinonychus. I mean, take, for example, look at this earlier piece of paleoart of Deinonychus that was done by Rob Backer. It, of course, looks very different from the type of paleoart that you would see today. So completely scaly raptors like this were certainly the standard for the time. And honestly, it will be something that we will see a lot, even to the up until the point where we should probably stop seeing it, but we're not going to stop seeing it anyway. But yeah, anyway, the animations on these guys just looks flawless. Their movements feel very animalistic as they're hunting down the ornithomimosaur. Everything about it is just incredible. So you know, I always really like stop motion, especially when used in this type of way, and this is just a shining example of very good stop motion, in my opinion. I like it. So I think that's a good start to the list. Now we will jump forward quite a bit and go on to Dinosaur King. Now, in Dinosaur King, it's still mostly featherless, with the exception of some feathers on its head. These look pretty cool. I mean, they're a nice nod to the fact that this guy was probably feathered. You know, it's incredibly likely that it was. But it does have generally more slim proportions. The body shape looks pretty decent. It's got the huge sickle claws on each foot. And I mean, the head shape is a little bit funky, especially in the snout. But generally speaking, this does a decent job. It's incredibly shrink wrapped, and it seems to be huge too. I mean, Deinonychus was big. You know, it was bigger than a Velociraptor, but it was more so like a medium-sized dromaeosaur. So it certainly wasn't this big right here. Regardless, this still looks pretty good. It's a fun little stylized design. I can't really say anything too negative about it overall, especially when they get these kind of evolution crystal things. I don't know what that's about because I've never actually finished the show. I used to watch it when I was younger, and I never finished it. So I don't know what that is. Anyway, let's move on. So we will move on to Jurassic Park. And I'm not going to talk about this too much because, of course, we will be talking about Velociraptor in its own dedicated video. But the Jurassic Park Velociraptors are Deinonychus. I know that there's going to be a couple people in the comments who will say that in universe, they are named Velociraptor mongoliensis and that they were found in Mongolia and stuff like that. The film does contradict that because we actually see them digging up a Velociraptor skeleton at the beginning of the film, and it's in Montana, which is a place that Deinonychus did live. Of course, out of universe, these guys were based off of Deinonychus, all the way back into the first book. Michael Crichton based the design, I like his description of the animal off of the dinosaur known as Deinonychus. The reason why it has the name Velociraptor is because at the time, Gregory S. Paul had the belief that Velociraptor and Deinonychus simply belonged to the same genus. They were simply just different species under the same genus, which means that you would have Velociraptor mongoliensis and Velociraptor anteropus, which would be Deinonychus here. Michael Crichton liked that idea, and so he applied it to his book. That's why in the book, it's named Velociraptor anteropus. And again, it's found in Montana. And the same logic applies to the movie. These guys were based off of the book, which by extension are based off of Deinonychus. And honestly, of course, they do look more like Deinonychus than they look like Velociraptor in many different ways. I mean, they're still larger than Deinonychus was, but their size is closer. Generally speaking, their skull shape is closer. Their proportions are a lot closer. All in all, these are definitely a lot more like Deinonychus. I mean, take a look at that Rob Backer piece of paleoart right here. It certainly looks a lot more like the Jurassic Park velociraptors, and that was Deinonychus. But again, I won't talk about them too much. I won't talk about what I like about them. I won't talk about what I dislike about them, because that is for the velociraptor video. That's just something I wanted to bring up right here. Mainly because it is a fun piece of trivia, you know. Little fun piece of thing that you can, just a fun thing that you could tell everybody, I guess, I don't know. And it's actually fitting for the Jurassic Park velociraptors to be based off of Deinonychus, because as I alluded to before, Deinonychus is what helped kick off what is known as the dinosaur renaissance. What the dinosaur renaissance is, in essence, is basically the huge shift from giant lumbering cold-blooded animals to warm-blooded, a lot faster, a lot more nimble animals. Deinonychus helped emphasize that, because when Deinonychus was described, it was noted by John Ostrom that it had the adaptations for more so a speedy lifestyle rather than a slow, sluggish moving lifestyle. So because of that, other dinosaurs were starting to get reevaluated, and you get to the point where you get to Jurassic Park, where the dinosaurs are warm-blooded, a lot quicker, and portrayed more so like the animals that we see them as today. Something that, again, was started because of Deinonychus. So to have an animal that is based off of Deinonychus as one of your creatures in that film is a fantastic idea, and I think is just a nice kind of like reference to that. Of course, John Ostrom also believed that Deinonychus probably had feathers. He had a good hunch about it. But feathers, again, were not nearly as accepted at the time, so it took a while before feathers started to catch on. We'll move on to the Jurassic Park video games, and Deinonychus actually has a few appearances in this. First, in the Lost World Jurassic Park, which is a console game, there's this illustration right here, which looks like the Jurassic Park Velociraptor, which means that it looks like the Jurassic Park Deinonychus. I mean, it's named as Deinonychus here too. It's just got different spots and things like that. So it looks good for the time, you know, stylized in that Jurassic Park style. Then you move on to Jurassic Park Builder, or Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder. Then you have these guys whose snout are a little bit thinner, which is kind of closer to how we see Deinonychus today. And they're very thin and naked still. Still no feathers. Okay, so now we move on to the Jurassic World Evolution Deinonychus, both Evolution 1 and Evolution 2, of course. And I can say with absolute certainty that this is a design. This is certainly designed. This is one of the most designed designs that I've ever seen. Very designed. I don't like it. I'm sorry to say, but I'm really not a big fan of it. I think that Frontier does a fantastic job in a lot of their different dinosaur, like their creature designs. But I am really, really, really not a fan of this. Like, why does it look like that? Why? Why? Just why? I mean, one thing I could definitely give it is that this is distinct from Velociraptor. Of course, Velociraptor, as I mentioned earlier in the video, basically is Deinonychus. You know, the whole Gregory Espal thing and all that good stuff. So making Deinonychus distinct from Velociraptor is a good move, but I don't know if this was the right direction to take it. Because, oh, that's kind of cool, though. I like the colors on this one, but, you know, it has, like, a crest on it. It has, like, this type of tadpole tail going on back here. As per usual, the arms are breaking and stuff like that. It's got tiny, tiny hands. These slit pupils, of course, which that might be likely, honestly. And, you know, completely naked, of course, but this was before they started adding feathers to them in the game. This one's kind of cool. I like the colors on this one. Some of the colors do look really cool. And if you want to like use this as like a type of alien or a fictional dinosaur, then it looks great. But as something like Deinonychus, I don't know if it's the best. I'm just not a big fan. I'm sorry. So yeah, that is the Jurassic World Evolution Deinonychus. I believe in Primal Ops it looks like this too. Yeah. There it is. Okay, and right here we have the Jurassic World Alive Deinonychus, and I quite like it. I think it looks pretty good. It's a little bit stylized. It veers a little bit from the way that the animal would have truly looked. But this might be my favorite of the Jurassic franchise ones. It also looks quite similar to this in Jurassic World the game. The hands are breaking, and the feathers stop at the base of the hand when they would have extended all the way to the second finger. But it is great that it does have feathers, and the coverage, for the most part, again, minus the hands, looks pretty good. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this one. I think that they did a good job at it. Now we'll move out of the Jurassic franchise and go into Jurassic Fight Club, the infamous documentary that is more so about entertainment than actual education, which is kind of sad. But you do have Deinonychus here, which is still naked. Now, of course, I mentioned that it took a while for feathers to actually catch on, but by the time the Jurassic Fight Club came out, I believe that they were a lot more widely accepted. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Utah raptor in this show actually did have feathers, so I don't know why they were kind of picky and choosy with that. The colors are cool. That's like the only thing I can really say about it. I'm not a big fan of its overall proportions. I'm not a big fan of just how monsterized it kind of looks. The colors are cool. That's pretty much it. And of course, something that's being emphasized quite a bit here is the pack hunting aspect. So here's the thing. It's kind of unlikely that Deinonychus was a pack hunter. Now, what they're showing here is a pack of Deinonychus going after a Tenontosaurus. Of course, Deinonychus fossils have been found alongside Tenontosaurus. And, there's been trackways of Deinonychus going in the same direction. I mean, at least I believe they were Deinonychus, but there is some supposed evidence for Deinonychus being a pack hunter. Although a coordinated pack hunter is where it gets to be a little bit more shaky, because of course coordinated pack hunting is not something you see too frequently in reptiles today. That includes birds, because of course birds are reptiles. You might see it every so often. Sometimes it might be opportunistic, but you don't really see it as the golden standard, especially the way that it's portrayed with Deinonychus and other such dromaeosaurs. What seems most likely right now was a mob mentality, similar to Komodo dragons. Sometimes Komodo dragons in the wild will gang up on a huge prey item and they would all just take it down together. But then after the animal was taken down, then it turns into every reptile for itself, basically. They start attacking each other. They start getting as much meat as they possibly can. Oftentimes, Komodo dragons will lose their lives. Oftentimes, they'll lose limbs and things like that. It gets to be pretty messed up, all things considered. That seems like what could be happening here. Of course, you have a Tenontosaurus skeleton right there, and then you have Deinonychus skeletons around there. Well, I mean, either those Deinonychus could have been killed in like a fight with the Tenontosaurus, or they could have been killed by other Deinonychus from the feeding frenzy at the end. In fact, there are some skeletons that are missing, missing bones that kind of line up to the type of missing bones that Komodo dragons are missing after their feeding frenzy. So right now, the most likely scenario seems to be a feeding frenzy, but maybe there is more evidence to find in the future. Just right now, there's just really not a lot to back it up. It's just pack hunting, the coordinated pack hunting in reptiles is just pretty rare, all things considered. So it shouldn't necessarily be the standard in extinct ones. From there, we'll move on to Clash of the Dinosaurs, and we're getting a correct step. We're stepping in the correct direction. It has feathers. They are not really the correct type of feathers, and it seems to be incredibly sparse in general. Deinonychus would have been incredibly feathered, with feathers that covered its whole arm, essentially, going all the way up to its middle finger and basically leaving its last finger exposed. And the feathers would have extended onto its head, too, and only leaving the snout exposed, which, of course, is not really represented here. That aside, the colors do look pretty cool too, and the quality of the CGI I think is really great. Very interesting to see them go after this giant Sauroposeidon though, kind of using their claws to slash and things like that. It's unlikely that they would have been able to do that. There has been some tests done on dromaeosaur sickle claws, and they found that they couldn't tear, rather they could only like stab. So it seems likely that what Deinonychus would do was, like, I think the most accepted idea right now is that it would pin its prey with those claws while tearing into it with its teeth and using its arms to balance, which actually sounds incredibly terrifying. It's very similar to birds of prey that we see today. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to go like that, but hey, to each their own. Then we move on to dinosaur train. So again, we lack feathers here. Got a nice orange coloration. You got the sickle claw. The head looks pretty interesting, and it's pretty slim overall. There's really not too much I can say about it, just that it's another step back, I guess. I don't know. And then we have Prehistoric, released in 2010. Now, this guy looks interesting. I haven't mentioned this yet, but it is breaking its wrists. That's something, it couldn't hold them like this. The feathers are the incorrect type of feathers, and the overall skeleton doesn't look very Deinonychus, I don't think. It's interesting. I can really say that, but there's really not too much I can say. And then there's Prehistoric Assassins, also released in 2010. And the thing that I really want to say the most is how much this kind of reminds me of like a gremlin or something. I don't know. Just look at him. It's just like, ugh. So it has feathers, which is good. The feathers look to be pretty good on the arm. They stop at the base of the skull, which again, they would have extended down to the snout essentially. But everything else looks pretty decent from there. It's not the highest quality CGI, but it looks decent. And then when whales walked, this guy it doesn't look bad. It kind of reminds me of Ark, funnily enough, just with the way that those feathers look and everything. Again, the feathers stop at the base of the skull. They would have gone down to the snout. The feathers on the arms look pretty good, and I think that the colors are really cool too. Not much else I can say about it. It shows up in a little bit of a section that talks about the link between birds and dinosaurs. Of course, birds are dinosaurs, so that's always something that's cool to bring up. And yeah, it's definitely one of the better designs that we've seen so far in terms of like current accuracy anyway. And then we have one of the most recent, life on our planet. So it is a little bit outdated. The skull shape seems to be an older depiction, like the way that we used to think the skull shape would look. Nowadays, the snout is a little bit more thin and not as triangular as it's presented here. But other than that, everything else looks pretty decent. It's got the correct type of feathers covering basically the whole hand. And the black is really cool. And again, the feathers going all the way up to the snout like this. Also, the babies are really fun to see. But they do showcase it pack hunting again, which, again, that's all speculative. Can't really say for sure. Right now, it's just something that's pretty unlikely at the moment. But what was really cool about this segment is that it introduced me to Arkansaurus. I didn't know this guy existed, so I'm appreciative of that. So all things considered, I like the quality of the CGI, and I like the addition of the feathers. So this is, one of the most accurate ones that we've seen. And then on to Zoo Tycoon. Moving on to video games, by the way. Zoo Tycoon, it looks like this handsome little fella. Very handsome, very different. One of the most different ones that we have seen so far. It's something. It's breaking its wrists. It's got like huge arms. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. I don't know. It's just crazy. You gotta love them. You gotta love them at the same time. Gotta love them. In Fossil Fighters, you got a really striking look, a striking pink coloration. These guys are going to be stubby, as per usual, as they are in this game, and they seem to lack the feathers, of course. It's just very striking colors, I think. And then in Ark, and yeah, see, this does look like that one that I saw earlier. I wonder if they used the same model, but just tweaked it a little bit. I don't know. I have no way of saying that for sure, but this certainly does look like that. Anyway, I do like the addition of the feathers, and everything else looks pretty good. Of course, it is still stylized for the Ark style. Deinonychus, I think Magna Pede or something like that. I'm not too sure. But I think it looks pretty cool. I'm not a big fan of most Ark designs, but I think that this one looks pretty cool. I can certainly tell what it is, or at the very least, I can tell what family of dinosaur it belongs to, which wouldn't really be too hard. But yeah, I like it. And there we have it. Those are the many interpretations of one Deinonychus. Yes, I am wearing a different shirt. No, I didn't forget to record my outro. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But this was certainly kind of like a mixed list, all things considered. A lot of them were kind of like iffy. Some of them were kind of like outdated, seemingly for outdated sake. But there were some really good ones. There were some that I kind of leaned towards. I certainly did like the Life on Our Planet one. The Ark one was pretty good, all things considered. So, it was a fun list overall, and it was a fun video to dive into for such an important dinosaur for the field of paleontology as a whole. The poll should be going up tomorrow. This video does seem like it will be getting out a little bit late. It's been a little bit more difficult trying to keep up with most videos recently. But I'm doing it. I'm holding strong. I want to also give a little bit of an update that my wife and I are currently working on a Patreon and things like that. So I have no idea when it will be going up. We're in the very early stages of getting that going because I really want good things to come from Patreon. I want you guys to get good things if you choose to support me on there. Just kind of keep it in the back of your minds that is something I'm working on right now. And, hopefully we can get that out eventually and just kind of prioritize content creation a little bit more and hopefully create better quality content as a whole. Because that is one of my biggest goals. I want to have good content for everybody to watch and to just kind of focus on more things like this. But that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and a comment and, follow if you want, if this is the kind of content that you like, all kinds of dinosaur content. It's a lot of fun, it's a fun time. But again, thank you so much for watching and have an awesome day.